Hey everybody, this is Eric and Andrew again talking dental marketing. Today we're going to be talking about a case study that's very near and dear to our hearts. It's actually about our very first client, the guy who basically motivated us to start this company.
Our story actually starts in 2001. Dr. Barroso was a really good friend of my mom's, and she was going through some oncology treatment, and he reached out, and he was a really good dude, and took care of her and would go talk to her while she was having chemo. And obviously she had some tooth problems around that time, and he took care of her. He became a friend of the family. And fast forward to from 2001 to 2014, there I was sitting in his chair again. And we just started having a conversation about what I'd been up to over those 14 years and what he had been up to over those 14 years. And he was actually going through what a lot of dentists are going through, kind of the three factors that are coming together of insurance is paying less, corporate dentistry is moving in and spending good marketing dollars, as well as fewer people have dental insurance from their providers. So they're being more critical about when they get care. And through that, we just coffee led to lunch, and lunch led to our first client. And we ran him on the side for probably 6 months. And I fell in love with the industry, and we were able to move the needle so quickly for him and get him back into competition that one client became three, and three became 100.
And Dr. Barroso was a very traditional type of dentist. He had never done any marketing. He was a classic guy who thought that if you did marketing, you're basically a sellout. So he watched his practice dwindle from an average of 40 or 50 new patients a month down to 20 new patients a month. And it took that kind of pain, that kind of decreasing new patient volume for him to finally do something about it. And that is not uncommon. A lot of times people wait until they have the proverbial gun to their head before they call us. And while we were certainly happy to take him and we helped them, it is something that if you can avoid it, you should, because it's a lot more difficult to take a declining practice and make results happen because you don't have enough referring patients. You're basically having to buy every one of those new patients. So if you can help, like many other problems in life, it's better to address it with a little bit of prevention by doing some marketing and some advertising, even if it is on your own, in-house, than doing nothing until the pain is so bad that you have to hire external help.
And while we saw a good pop in new patients once we first engaged him, the real, getting his practice back to where it needed to be took time. And you'll often hear people talk about the one thing you need to do in marketing, or this, this sort of silver bullet marketing and fear-based marketing. It's all trash. There's no silver bullet in marketing. As soon as it becomes a silver bullet, everyone does it, and as such waters down everything. The best marketing is consistent, high quality, and on the nose of the person you're trying to acquire. And it's not, I do everything for everyone. Is I want to appeal to this audience to better my practice. Yeah. And that's what we did for Dr. Barroso. It was, it wasn't just building a site and leaving it alone. It was building a site and positioning him where he wanted to be, and focusing on the fact that he had been in the same community forever, and his mission trips, and the quality of the person matters, and it gives you something, because patients don't understand a technically good dentist versus a technically average dentist versus a technically bad dentist. Margins and occlusion and these words are not commonplace in the general population.
So one of the things that was super unique about our journey with Dr. Barroso is it was the first time that we were actually trying something that Eric brought to our agency from Procter & Gamble, which was the concept of focusing on the ideal patient. At Procter & Gamble, they called them the golden mom. Yeah. And the golden mom was a certain age, she had a certain number of kids, there's a certain persona around her, and all of Procter & Gamble's marketing was targeted to her. Now, obviously, they were happy to pick up some 21-year-old along the way who spent $200 a year on Procter & Gamble fem care products, which is a division he worked at, but that's not who their marketing was for. They were doing everything focusing on that one ideal patient. Yeah. So for Dr. Barroso, in our early days, we spent a lot of time just digging through his data, trying to find out who his best patients were in terms of lifetime value of production done at the practice, and then trying to back into what was it about them that made them so good for the practice? Was it their age? Was it their income? And how do we find more people like them?
Yeah, and a lot of people, when they get into marketing, they try to market all of their services to all of the population. And you just don't appeal to that much of the population. And if you do, you can't appeal to that broad of an array. So one of the key elements in improving a practice is, number one, focus on higher end treatment. While I may not understand the nuances of a prepless veneer, I do understand conceptually that if someone can do veneers, then they can handle my issue. If you can place an implant, you can fix my tooth. And while I may not understand the mechanics of the treatment or the specifics, I do emotionally understand them as a consumer. So when we got engaged with Dr. Barroso with his office, it was very much we wanted to position him as the dentistry leader in the area who had been there for 35 years. And by positioning him with a very specific patient base, that's how we drove such a big increase in both his new patient and his production numbers. Now, he did pick up older and younger patients outside of what we were targeting because they of course responded to the advertising as well. But every practice has to have a unique strategy to drive patients based on the strength of the personality of the dentist, the location of the office, even how the staff works, how many ops, is it in a storefront? All of these things matter. Dr. Barroso was very well positioned to focus tightly on a subset of the population that needed high-end dentistry in his area.
I mean, it's not for nothing that there's a saying out there, when you try to please everyone, you please no one. And that applies in marketing too. You have to have a focus. You have to have that message that you're targeting that personifies the kind of dentistry you're doing, the kind of office that you are, and make it about that so that you can have a high impact when you're doing advertising.
Yeah, even just think about what type of text and imagery would a 31-year-old mom focus on versus a 52-year-old male. And as we age and evolve, even the different sexes and where we are in our lives, we want different things in our dentist. And we're looking for different connection, and we have different needs. So as we age, we're looking we kind of evolve from more technology-centric to more quality of care, to I have a little extra money and I'm willing to pay for high quality, to valuing the experience. By targeting the entire population, you're watering down your marketing effectiveness. You really should be honing in on your ideal patient.
Yeah, and that's not to say that you can't offer multiple services or advertise multiple services, but it does mean that those should be done with a purpose, and the entire campaign needs to be in alignment with a single message. So when you're running an implant-focused campaign, let that be the only message that you're pushing out. And then maybe it's the end of the year and you want to do more Invisalign. It's okay to change it then, but your website, your advertising, your photography, the way that people are answering the phones, all of those things need to be in alignment in order for the marketing message to really be effective. So now we want to share with you a little more detail around what was unique about Dr. Barroso, a little bit about his ideal patient, how we got there, and how we deployed his marketing strategy. So for Dr. Barroso, like Eric said earlier, he was super involved in the community. He did a lot of nonprofit pro bono work. He did a lot of mission trips. And so we honed in pretty early on that the mixture of people who had a passion for nonprofits, even if it wasn't necessarily the same type of nonprofit work that he was doing, they really liked doing business with someone who was that involved in the community. So we honed in his ideal patient to be someone in their 40s or 50s, teenage age kids, maybe college kids, who had some previous association with a nonprofit or any sort of charity organization, and who valued the community type of business because he had been in the same location for roughly 30 years or so. He was super well known in the community. When we mapped his patients, and we've talked about this before, we like to plot out all of the existing patients of a practice we start working with, we realized he had a really broad reach because people were willing to drive to his practice just because of his reputation and the kind of involvement that he had in the community down in Burleson.
Finding that uniqueness of a doctor and a practice is really important. I mean, in the commoditized world of dentistry right now, we're looking for the connection that we make. And there are people who chose Dr. Barroso simply because they perceived him to be this amazing guy who always gives back to his community and was always going on mission trips. And that does make him a great person, but we tend to want to do business with people we aspire to. And he certainly fits that mold. And he practices amazing dentistry, of course.
Yeah. So one of the things to build on that we also focused on early on was getting those Google reviews. I mean, he was super embarrassed of asking. And so he had a few, but once we started just asking patients for it, they just flooded in because people loved him. They're ready to talk about him. And that offered the social proof, the validation that a prospective new patient wants when they come to vet you as their new dentist. Once we had his ideal patient profile, we honed in on his messaging and kind of the pillar of the strategy around the community. We started doing advertising. And as you can see on the screen right now, his results were phenomenal. The bar chart shows the number of comp exams he had before we got started. We're talking specifically here the D0150 code. And the green bar represents when we got started. And to the right is, again, his new patients by month since then. And you can see that the population in his area really responded well to that marketing message. And it was just super fun and easy to see how having a plan and having a focused target really just works.
Yeah. And we've talked about it before. There's no magic silver bullet in marketing. Marketing is consistent effort. It's 1% here and 2% here. And over time, you build up, 100%, 200%. By focusing on reviews first, by pushing his CE courses, his mission trips, and his pro bono work, by really highlighting the fact that he was such a pillar in his community, been there 35 years and things like this. That's how we got to his big gains in new patients and production. He saw the similar story of, someone would come in with a new set of veneers and they got them from another dentist, and, it just made him mad. Of course, he didn't show it, but because they didn't even know he did veneers. And part of it was just pushing out the clinical procedures he did along with the demonstration of excellence of those patient testimonials. And in 2020 especially, and it's been true for a number of years, videoed patient testimonials are so important to the overall marketing strategy. It's social validation. It's people we aspire to. And that demonstrates excellence far more than someone, raising their hand and saying that I do something so amazing. I mean, the internet's full of people talking to themselves about how awesome they do. We really want to see it demonstrated in people we aspire to.
And from a more tactical standpoint, we did run Facebook campaigns. We did run Google ads. We did do a few rounds of postcards with very targeted messaging and only to people who moved in the area within the last 90 days. But I think what separated what we were doing from what a lot of people do is something that we refer to, and it's something you can research, is the champion challenger model. And that's a model where in advertising, you have an ad that's a current champion, and that can be a Facebook ad or a Google ad. And you create variations of that ad to see if you can beat the current champion in terms of performance. So obviously you have to have some amount of analytics installed and some tracking to be able to say, these ads are generating website visitors, they're generating phone calls, they're generating patients. But once you have that in place, you can really start measuring with empirical data which ads are performing the best. And once you have that, you can continue to improve. And like Eric said, a 1%, 2% improvement to each ad and each campaign can actually amount to some significant growth in the practice because you're now just being that much more efficient with every dollar that you spend. So it wasn't that we have a secret marketing channel that nobody else does. It's just that we have a higher level of discipline and rigor that we deploy to our marketing campaigns so that we can really resonate with who is clicking on the ads and converting into patients for that specific practice. So it's important to highlight, that doesn't mean that an ad copy or an ad image that worked for one doctor is going to work for every doctor. This ties back to their particular persona that they're targeting and who they are as a dentist and as a practice. But it's important that you do this A/B testing all along the way until you hone into the exact mix of how much in Facebook ads, how much in Google ads, and other channels that combined, that together bring the overall results.
Yeah. And this actually manifests itself in, you'll hear offices say, oh, I have someone that does Facebook, or I have someone that runs AdWords. They probably went out and launched ads, and just the success or failure was on that very first ad that was written. No changes to the text were made, no changes to the targeting, no changes to the imagery. We write 10,000 ads a year, I would estimate, and half of them get trashed because they don't perform. And we take the ones that work and spawn new ads off of those. And marketing is not luck. It's discipline, and it's rigor. It's doing something consistently to get 1 or 2% gain on a what am I trying to say? Marketing is about consistency and rigor. It's taking an ad that works, making a copy of it, making a few tweaks, and then launching it out and running that champion challenger strategy, because that's how you get returns. I can't tell you how many times we've heard, oh, I did Facebook and it didn't work. Well, how many iterations of ads did you run? What was your budget? How long did you run them? How did you determine what success was? Those are things that drive marketing. In John Barroso's case, those are things that moved him from 20 or so new patients up to, an average of 60.
Yeah. And to go along with that, here's another tip. If you are going to be doing ads yourself, make sure that you don't write ads that you like. Mm-hmm. Really put yourself in the shoes of that prospective patient, someone who makes $50,000 or $60,000 a year and is looking for a dentist who has put off coming to the dentist for a long time. Because one of the things that we have to battle very often with clients is we write campaigns, we write ads, we write creative that we think is going to resonate with the target patient, but the doctor says, well, I don't really like it. Oh, guess what? It's not for you to like. It's for the patients to feel connected to and pick up the phone and call you. So make sure that you're being curious. Make sure you're being open-minded with what the ad creative itself looks like, because you have to remember these ads aren't made for other dentists. They're made to the average consumer who is looking for a new dentist.
Now that we've talked about strategy, the way we executed that strategy across Google, Facebook, Instagram, building a new website, even the way the phones were answered, the way scheduling was done, everything is really almost doubled his new patients he's bringing in on a consistent basis. But also what it's allowed him to do is now he's got 2 associate doctors that work from him. He's seeing, close to 60 new patients a month. He's ramped up to 3 full-time hygienists, 15 hygiene days a week, which is huge. And he's been able to now focus on the cases that he wants to focus on, not back tooth endo and surgical extractions, which he never did like. So as his practice production increased, that of course brought his other financials into alignment, and he was able to make the same money with working less days and having his associates in place. So it's really been a win across the board. Dr. Barroso's budget rolls in around 5% of collections. That's the amount we manage. And again, that's the ad buys, that's the creative and photo shoots and video shoots, as well as our time in meetings. And we meet regularly with Dr. Barroso and Jessica Nunn at SkyTel to talk about how much marketing should we be allocating, what type of marketing we should be doing, because as he schedules out patients into the 2, 3, 4 week range, we scale back on ad buys because we're just wasting our time and his money at that point. We like patients to get in 3 to 4 days after they call, and if that doesn't happen, there's generally some scheduling tightening up that needs to occur, block scheduling and things. So he's been able to practice the dentistry he wants to do, and as such, he's built out more hygiene ops in the surgical suite. So it's been fun to watch his practice grow.
And lastly, another I would call result out of this case study is that we're now just friends with Dr. Barroso. We go down to Burleson once a month and have lunch with him at a little Mexican joint next door that knows him by name. And we talk shop, we talk marketing strategy, we talk about where he wants to go with his practice next, and really just become a part of his team.
If you have any questions about what we've talked about or the strategy we've done for Dr. Barroso or the tactics we've deployed, feel free to call us or call him. He loves to talk shop.
Make sure you have some time available because it won't be a short call. But anyways, thanks you guys for watching, and we'll chat soon.